is going to be more of a broadly capturing conversation. So let me move to the next slide. Then we talk about what we're going to do today. So basically, we are going to look at the e-commerce ecosystem in general, the e-commerce ecosystem. Then also we look at cybersecurity and e-commerce. To an extension, we are going to look at fraud and e-commerce because there have been a lot of issues around this subject matter. Then we also look at the situational analysis of the e-commerce landscape or e-commerce fraud or the crime landscape. We also going to look at the best practices, mitigating e-commerce fraud and cyber crimes within our jurisdiction, even to an extension to other jurisdictions. But let's look at a brief overview. Now, we'll be mentioning e-commerce along the session. And it's very important for us to know what really e-commerce is and understand which players form part of the ecosystem. So e-commerce basically, like you can see on the slide, is the buying and selling of goods, okay, or services via the internet, and the transfer of money or data to complete the sales. Okay, so basically it is just buying and selling across the internet space, So that is what e-commerce is. So electronic commerce, internet commerce. So basically, cyber domain has given us the opportunity to practice whatever we were practicing in the physical world, where you go to the market. Those who are in Ghana would know, let's say, Malata Market. You go to Malata Market, you go and buy something from that place. You get the Kayaye or the headquarters to pick the goods for you to your vehicle. Then you move the goods from your vehicle to your house. Yes, that is just the physical commerce we all know about. And this has been transferred onto the cyber domain. That is why we call it the electronic commerce. So basically, there are about 6 different types of e-commerce. Okay, and we will see how fraud and cybersecurity play within all this space. So we have the customer or C2A. C2A is customer to administration or a government entity. Okay, so that is what we mean by the C2A. Now we have the B2A. So B2A is also from the businesses to government entities. From businesses to government entities. So any transaction that occurs on the internet between these two group of persons. So we also have the C2B, which is customer to business. Customer to business. Then we also have the C2C, customer to customer, like the OLS platforms and the Tonaton platforms. Okay. Then we have the B2B, which is business to business e-commerce model, where businesses sell to businesses. Those of us who are well aware of Alibaba, yes, Alibaba is more like a B2B kind of platform. Then we also have the B2C, which is business to customer. So the business sells directly to the customers. AliExpress is one of them. Okay, so basically, those are the types of e-commerce platforms we have. Now, let's look at the players within the space. Okay, so what you see on the slide right now is just an example of a medium or the mid-sized company e-commerce ecosystem. Okay, so you have the e-commerce platform, then we have the marketplaces that they deal with. Even the websites are specifically created for some e-commerce platforms. We also have e-commerce or online marketing tools that the e-commerce platforms use or the e-commerce providers use. We also have the financial aspect, which is the payment gateways. Because of course, if you go online and you go and make a purchase on Jumia, for example, you have to make some kind of payment. And these payments, people use PayPal and all other channels, even within the African context, specifically for Ghana, you can see that we also make very good use of mobile money. So all those ones are payments platforms that are used within this whole ecosystem. And those of us who are on the call that are fully into e-commerce, platform provision, you realize that there is also the use of accounting softwares. Okay, there's also the use of shipping software. So you use FedEx, you use UPS, you use DHL and other platforms to do the shipping or to manage your shipping. We also have the inventory management system that forms part of the whole ecosystem. And then by and large, some CRM systems to help kindly mute yourself if you are not speaking. Okay, I think I've been muted. Thank you. So this is the ecosystem. And now, why are we showing this ecosystem when it comes to the cost? Now, you realize that all these players within the ecosystem have specific roles that they play. Now, what happens is that all these systems are based on some kind of IT infrastructure. And so far as there are some IT infrastructures in place, so far as there are people involved, as far as there are processes involved in all these movements to fulfill an e-commerce transaction, the tendency for fraud and cybercrime becomes extremely high. Okay, the tendency for fraud and cybercrime becomes extremely high. Now, this diagram is just an expansion of the ecosystem, and this is from the Benelux, which is Belgium, Netherlands, and then Luxembourg. So this is just an ecosystem that I just thought of sharing with us. Now, when you look at the projection of e-commerce in terms of sales worldwide, and this is a data that was obtained from Statista, okay, now in 2022. So this is just a projection, and it's projected that by 2025, e-commerce sales transactions worldwide would be heading towards 7 trillion, because you can see over here that it is 7,391 in billion. So when you convert it, it is heading to trillions. It's heading to trillions, and it's very important that we take note, and it actually sends a signal to everybody, meaning that it is an ecosystem that has come to stay. It's an ecosystem that has come to stay. And if it has come to stay, it's getting a lot of tractions in terms of money that goes onto the system. It means that the criminals will also see it as a very wonderful venture to go into, to be able to defraud and gain a lot of money from that angle. Now, when you even situate it to the Ghanaian ecosystem, this is also statistics from Data Reporter. Okay, you realize that for electronics, this statistics was obtained in February 2022, and $1.36 billion was spent on electronics. 1.36 for fashion, 1.22 for furniture, a whopping $163 million was spent. For toys, we have some for toys, we have some for household and personal care. We also have some for food. We also have some for beverages, and then even physical media. So you can see the amount of money that is even moving on the Ghanaian ecosystem. This is very huge. This is very huge. And we all have to find a way to protect the ecosystem. So here comes the slide on e-commerce fraud. So basically, e-commerce fraud is the criminal deception conducted during a commercial transaction over the internet, okay, with the goal of financial or personal gain of the fraudster. Okay, so while negatively impacting, the merchant or the customer. So e-commerce fraud is basically the combination of the definition of what e-commerce is, which we all know, which is, doing some kind of transaction and buying and selling on the electronic or the internet space. Then fraud basically is the misrepresentation or the criminal deception to be able to gain an undue advantage of somebody. So basically, that is what fraud is. So when you concatenate or you put the two together, it is just somebody trying to deceive another person online. And we can see a lot of this play within the ecosystem. We will be looking at some few situational analysis and perhaps even discuss some of the things that we face within the ecosystem. Okay, so this is statistics that was obtained from Statista. And it says that about $20 billion has been lost through online payment fraud. Okay, now when you go further, this is just a bar chart demonstrating that, and it shows from 2021 to 2020. This chart also briefly looks at the sophistication in terms of the e-commerce attacks. So you realize that there are basic attacks that have very, huge percentage of the attack schemes, okay, which we will be discussing them soon. So for 2019, the basic attacks summed up to 65%. Then we also have the sophisticated attacks summing up to 35%. 2020, sophistication increased to 38%. And I wonder, I can project that as of 2022, we might have huge sophistication when it comes to e-commerce related crimes. So now, this is an interesting perspective that we seek to bring on board. Now we have realized, and this is a situational analysis that we are doing when it comes to e-commerce fraud. We have realized that there is an emergence of cyber gangs. And one thing you ought to know is that there's a business model that is happening within the dark web, which is crimeware as a service business model. Now, crimeware as a service business model is a model that has been designed to be able to provide non-technical people with tools to be able to commit crime. And this crime even extend to the e-commerce platforms. We have had countless cases where the e-commerce platforms, some of them get inundated with a lot of attacks, and funds are transferred or goods are transferred to people who see themselves as recipients of fraudulent goods. And at the end of the day, when they receive those fraudulent goods, they then transfer it to the people who initiated the fraud. So it's the full business on their own. And you will see within the slide that for these cyber gangs that we are talking about, they actually have a very organized structure with the leader. We have the money moles come in. We have people actually who develop viruses to be able to compromise systems. So if you own an e-commerce platform on the core, it sends a signal. It means that you are not just wrestling or fighting one sole criminal somewhere, but you are actually in fight with people who are really organized and are determined to commit crime. Now, there are a whole lot of schemes, but I'll just touch on a few. Then we'll look at the best practices. And I believe that is what most of us are also on the call for. So what really does it mean to say a classic fraud in e-commerce transactions? Sometimes it's called a true fraud. Sometimes we also have cases like triangulation fraud in e-commerce. What does it mean? We also have interception fraud, card validity testing, we have the chargeback, we have the merchant app fraud, we have the sign-up fraud. You know, there are a whole lot of them, but let me just touch on a few. Now, let's talk about the classic fraud, which is also termed as the true fraud when it comes to e-commerce related transactions. Now, this specifically looks at criminals stealing payment card information. Now, here I will talk about some few best practices, because I believe most of us use payment cards, either the credit card, either the debit card, or even the prepaid card that we have come to see within Ghana. So what happens is that criminals are able to get the card information. And you all know that when we talk about payment card, those of us who are into e-commerce over here, or if you have purchased something online before, to make a purchase, you will need the PAN, which is the primary account number. There are a lot of numbers on your ATM card, okay? That card, then there's a lot of numbers in there. So you need that number, you need the expiry date of the card, you would need the CVV, there's something we call CVV, at the back of the card. So oftentimes, criminals just get that card information and they use it for purchases online. That is why if you are a platform on the call here, you have to be able to authenticate those cards. You have to be able to know the identity of the customers that you are dealing with. So that is how the true or the classic fraud operates. Okay, so like I did mention, they use the deep or the dark web. Now, those of us who are on the call that don't know what the deep or the dark web is. Now, on the internet space, whatever we do in terms of the My Joy Online, Facebook.com, whatever.com, we practice it on something we call the surface web. So the www dots, you know, yes, that is the surface web. Now, there's another side of the internet, which is called the dark web. And in the dark web, there are a lot of things that go on over there. And one of the things that go on over there is the sale of card information. The sale of card information. So typically, a criminal can just go there and buy a card for as cheap as $10 or $5. But when they try to use the card can have as much as $10,000 on it, $50,000 on it. And that is what we are talking about. So criminals go into the dark web, purchase these cards, and use them for purchases online, and use them for some kind of e-commerce transaction. Black Friday will be coming soon. And I bet you a lot of cards will be compromised. And criminals will also use stolen cards to make purchases online. So this should even be like a crowd call to us on the call, so that we will be very alert when it comes to that. Okay, so in terms of the fraud, now we know that within the Ghanaian space, most of us, even making purchases online, there's a lot of integrations when it comes to mobile money account and mobile money purchases. There's a lot of integrations that has come up. So in 2020, up to now, there was some kind of trend that we saw at E-Crime Bureau. And I believe those of us who are on the call, who are actually always, following up on the tech trends and crime trends within the jurisdiction, you realize that this is something that came up, where you will be there and you will get a push prompt on your mobile device. Push prompts telling you to authorize payments. And this screenshot you are seeing are screenshots that were sent to us as e-crime bureau. These are screenshots that were sent to us as e-crime bureau. And this is something that somebody got, and he hadn't, initiated any transaction to make any purchase. But you get a purchase hitting your account telling you that authorized payment. And I tell you, a whole lot of people fell prey to this kind of crime. But God being so good, a lot of awareness have gone on, and people have become very conscious of this trend. So if you are on the call and you haven't initiated a transaction and you get this push prompt come up on your screen, please be on the guard. Do not authorize payment. Otherwise, as soon as you make any authorization, you are going to lose money from your mobile money account. Okay, so this is just a caution to all of us, or a best practice we should all take note of. So this is a screenshot. It's a screenshot of a dark website where sale of credit card information is happening. Now, let's move on to another trend. This is identity theft. And I must tell you, this is one of the major problems within the e-commerce space now within Ghana. Day in, day out, e-crime bureau receives some kind of reports in relation to this identity theft. And this identity theft is even spanning from the social media platforms, be it the IG, which is Instagram, Facebook, whatever platform that businesses situate themselves and make sales. And let me tell you, sometimes we have received reports of even financial institutions having their accounts cloned or hijacked. And sometimes criminals create fake profiles purporting to be those financial institutions. And one of the typical cases that we saw, the criminal actually created a fake profile impersonating the bank within Ghana. And what happened was that they created an advert calling people to come and sign up for a promotion. And through that platform, they were able to leverage on that to defraud the unsuspecting subscribers or customers. And this identity theft had been going on and on. Even there was a case where one young lady, selling a slimming tea on Instagram. She had over 50K followers. When I say 50K, 50,000 followers on IG. And what happened was that the criminals were able to hijack her account, and they used that account to commit fraud. So there is a lot of trend, a lot of things that are happening within the e-commerce space, and we ought to be very careful. Now, this is also a news about some fraudsters ripping off travelers through fake airline booking accounts. So like I did mention, they create they impersonate accounts and then defraud people. And because of this, people's trust for online platforms, I wouldn't mention some of them on the call, have actually gone down. When you tell them, I'm going to buy something online from this shop, they'll be like, hey, are you sure? Make sure you're not defrauded. So there's a lot of trust issues in here. And I know that that is one of the major things that the Pan-African E-commerce Initiative are trying to, work around, so that there is a lot of trust within the ecosystem. We have come into an era where even purchasing things online, we don't trust people. So there is actually a dilemma whether to pay before the item is delivered to us, or to get the item delivered to us before we pay. So here, the buyer and the seller actually are in a dilemma because they don't know which to do. And for now, within the Ghanaian eco space, or whatever, most people will prefer to see the product face to face, hold the product before they even make any purchase. It's because of the fraud trends within the ecosystem. Now, let me talk briefly about triangulation fraud. So, triangulation fraud is another fraud trend that we have seen within the ecosystem. And what this means, let me show you a diagram to better explain triangulation fraud. So what happens within the triangulation fraud is that the criminal sets up a clone account. And when they set up the clone account, of course, customers want to go and then make purchase. Now, when you do the purchase, let's say you are buying a television set. You do the purchase from the criminal's website. When you make the purchase, the criminal captures your legitimate card information. Okay, now what they do is that they use a fraudulent card. My cursor is actually on that thing. I think you can see it. They use a fraudulent card and use that to make the purchase from a merchant. So you are buying a television set that has been established. So they buy the television set from a merchant and then they use your address to make the shipment. So at the end of the day, you get your television set. Now, what you don't know, what you are oblivious about, is that the criminal has taken your legitimate card, your card information, and has used a fraudulent card to make the purchase for you. So here, when law enforcement agencies are trying to track the fraudulent sale, at the end of the day, they might end up tracking the sale to your doorstep. And that is what makes it very scary. There's also the fraudulent purchase. Because of time factor, I'll just go through this quickly. But E-Crime Bureau, we do a lot of these trainings, and it is in that spirit that we have engaged with the Pan-African E-Commerce Initiative, and I know that we are in talks. There will be some in-person full-day sessions so that we can really discuss and digest some of these schemes. Because to be very frank, within 1 hour, these schemes cannot be really digested for you to get every nitty-gritty, but we will do our best to give you a lot of the information that you need for you to be able to counter the criminals when it comes to e-commerce related transactions. There's the fraudulent purchase where the criminals get a purchase item to be delivered to a wrong address, then it is reshipped to to them. There is also the merchant app fraud, where some criminals leverage on vulnerabilities within the systems to be able to use merchant apps to commit fraud. So here the fraudster downloads the mobile app and pays for goods and services using stolen cards. So at the end of the day, stolen cards come in here also, or even the mobile money, like we are all seeing. You all realize that I'm not sure if I should use the example. I think it is in the public domain, so perhaps I can use. Or okay, let me not mention them. You realize that some apps in Ghana here, hitherto, when you are making some purchase, you can just input a mobile money number in that app, and then you can make the purchase will just go through smoothly for you. But after fraud schemes or financial cyber crimes have hit the platforms, you realize that most of them, before you can make a purchase, you need to register your mobile money number with the application itself. before you make a purchase. This is what we are talking about. This is what we are talking about. So that is the app fraud, merchant app fraud. And here the criminals leverage on the merchant app itself to commit the fraud. There is a sign-up fraud where criminals are able to, do multiple registrations using their own schemes to be able to get that. They do that on order. Now let's delve into the best practices. I believe the timing my time is almost up. So let's quickly delve into some few best practices. Now, for e-commerce platforms over here, it's very important to look at a well-established KYC. And KYC, I'm sure some of you might have heard it before, it is know your customer. You should be able to know your customers very well. So if you have an e-commerce portal, you should be able to get vital information about your customers. Even KYC should extend to understanding the payment flows to connect payments to specific identities. Okay, so it's also important to, have or be PCI DSS compliant. So PCI DSS is Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards compliant. So this is technical, but anybody on the call or any institution on the call that accepts payment cards for transactions, you would have to be PCI DSS compliant. And PCI DSS has a lot of requirements, and the requirements span from the securing your network, securing the card holder data, doing some kind of vulnerability management, doing access controls within your system, having your network monitoring and testing within your system, and then some kind of information security related best practices. Now, another key thing to take note of to be able to mitigate fraud within the e-commerce space is transaction monitoring. Monitoring. I think before I end, I will show you some platform that you can leverage on. Okay, and let me just announce that E-Crime Bureau has partnered with an organization in the US that provides very solid and AI-driven platform for you to be able to do this kind of transaction monitoring and to be able to mitigate fraud and crimes on your e-payments or e-commerce platforms. Okay, so transaction monitoring is key. Geolocation and security tagging. This is also a best practice to look out for. Now, to prevent the extent of fraud hitting the e-commerce platforms, it's very important to do transaction limits. So this is in the spirit of anti-money laundering. So there should be that transaction limits across board. Okay. So the transaction limits must be set out to. Now, the address verification system, these are a bit technical. We also have the CVV, which is the payment card verification value requirement. So if you have a site that doesn't request your users to actually apply CVV, to do CVV, it's very important that you have the CVV incorporated in it. Okay. Now, increase password requirements for logins. So in terms of your platforms that you have deployed, make sure that you actually adapt to the platform, not just the username and the password, but you should be able to have some kind of two-factor or multi-factor authentication to just help your customers secure their accounts. Then updating your softwares. and a whole lot of best practices. So before I even look at the solutions, okay, for the quick one, before I look at the solutions, please, if you have a portal over here, or even if you are doing e-commerce, you have a shop or a store online in terms of IG or Facebook or any of those online shops, please, as a best practice, regularly check online to find out if your account has been impersonated. So if I can see Sima Creations on the call, so you can go, if you have Sima Creations on Instagram, regularly go to Instagram and go and search for Sima Creations and see how many Sima Creations will come up. You'll be surprised. Maybe a criminal has impersonated Sima Creations and they'll be using that impersonated brand to target your customers. So that is a best practices. So to conclude on the solutions, make sure that you scan for potential weak spots on your website. And eCrime Bureau, we do vulnerability assessments. You can contact us as our call will be posted on the call. Our phone number, will be posted as soon as we are done with this presentation. And you can feel free to call us. We can do basic assessment on your website, your e-commerce website, for you to be able to secure yourself and say that, okay, my website is, fairly secure. There should be that real-time analytic tools, real-time analysis, analytic tools to be able to, help mitigate the fraud, vulnerability assessment and pen testing, comprehensive firewalls, and then SSL certification is very, very important. And so these are some of the solutions. But I am proud to tell you that we have a special partnership with the organization called Count. And after the call, after this very session, you can reach out to us, eCrime Bureau, and I'm even using this opportunity to type in my contact number so that you can reach out. The organization's contact number would also be shared for you to, reach out to us. We'll be able to assist you to get some of these platforms to secure your system. Okay, we are able to also help you do gap analysis on your system in terms of data protection. So this is something that you can call on us to help you quickly. Matilda will be posting in the chat box our details for you to be able to reach out to us. And then, in the spirit of fighting fraud and e-crime, we'll be able to, help you with some discount because of this initiative. So by and large, that is all for today. And I think, yes, this has been discussed already. So the time is up, it's 12 exactly. The floor is open for questions. The floor is open for questions. Thank you very much. Matilda, moderator, you can come in and then moderate the questioning sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Derek. So if anyone has a question, kindly raise your hand. I would then unmute yourself, then you can ask your question. Derek would respond. Okay. All right, please unmute yourself and then ask the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Matilda.
Hello, sir. Kindly go ahead.
Okay, my name is Kweku Oben. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to learn what is happening online. Okay, I'm worried about the system where you realize that, for example, an aspect of e-crime being supported by indirectly by a telco. I would like to name it MTN. You realize that there are a lot of fraudsters on that network, and there are there are agencies or stakeholders, maybe I should say, pardon me, watching on, and this crime keeps rising, going on each and every day. My worry is that why is this being allowed? All the institutions are there, and MTN is rated #1 network that is supporting fraudulent acts, and there is nothing going on. You find people calling people, you find people using their network to withdraw monies, and the thing is still happening. And it seems like nobody is saying anything. I'm so worried. I'm worried about it. What can we do about this, please?
Okay, thank you very much, Kweku Oben. This is a very legitimate concern, and your concern is actually being shared by other people. Now, a couple of things. One, of course, all of us have actually come to identify ourselves with mobile money related transactions and payment. And what is happening is that because, like you mentioned, MTN is the largest player within the ecosystem, and criminals are very rational in terms of their fraudulent activities. So they want to really target people within the space where they can get a lot of people. That is one. Now, two, another thing that happens is that criminals would always want to, leverage on the lack of knowledge of people. So that is the reason why most of these people are falling prey. People are not aware of social engineering schemes where criminals call them and say, hello, Sister Neil London, then mobile money transfers are done and all that. Okay, so they are preying on the ignorance and the lack of knowledge on that. Now, another angle is that, yes, of course, the telcos are doing their best. The telcos are doing their best. But like the primary school teacher will say, there is more room for improvement. We would like a lot of these fraud schemes to actually come down. Okay, so that is why the telecoms chamber, they've actually set up a system that takes reports of crimes. So I know that there is a portal that when a number has been involved in, mobile money fraud, when you report, the telecoms chamber or the telcos will lock that number into that portal, and those numbers will be blocked. Now, when those numbers are blocked, they have gone further. That when a particular number, because usually when you use a number to commit a crime, it is done on a mobile phone. So because it is done on a mobile phone, the IMEI of the mobile device is captured. So when this IMEI appears on the platform for about 10 times or a couple of times, the telecom chamber realizes that no, then this is a mobile device that is being used by the criminals for fraud. Then they now block the phone totally from being able to operate. So those are some of the a few things. Now, another angle is that we as consumers would also have a role to play by conscientizing people who are close to us. For example, on the call right now, we have discussed a lot of things. So we advocate that you serve as ambassadors to encourage our brothers and sisters who don't know the risks and the fraud schemes around the use of these mobile payments, for them to be able to, be safeguarded. So there are a whole lot of things that are going on, but your concern is very legit. And I must say that it's something that everybody, we are all pushing for fraud to be mitigated. Now, on the last thing, fraud generally cannot be eliminated in a society. When you say elimination, that means 0%. So far as we are living in a human society, there will certainly be fraud, but the goal is to mitigate the fraud to the barest minimum. So thank you very much, Kweku. I hope I have answered you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So we have the question asking if the slides would be shared and then if the recording would be shared. We'd like to inform you that the presentation would be shared. So kindly type some people joined in by registering and then the link was sent to them. Some people were sent the link and then they joined indirectly. So if you fall in the category where you joined indirectly, kindly type your email address in the chat box, then we would send the recording to you. I see some other hands are up. Madam Harriet Fojo, kindly unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please, I would like to find out about cloning. You talked about, give an example on Instagram where you can go and type and then you see the other names coming up. What of website? How do we go about that? Is it the same process? I would like to know about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so it's basically the same process. So what happens is that you can go online and then go and just do a quick Google search about your organization, okay, and see what will pop up, okay. Now, that is just on the basic level, but in terms of technically, we know that you don't have the skill to be checking every day. So eCrime actually has rendered that service. We have a portal called the CTR portal where you can just input your website into our portal and be monitoring it. You can set it such that you can monitor it every day or every 2 days or every week. Any website that comes online that resembles your website. So let me make an example. If your website is, let's say lizzy.com, okay, I can see some Lizzy on the call. So if your website is lizzy.com, which is LIZZY.com, if somebody creates a website and makes it LLZZY, it looks similar like lizzy.com, and it could be an avenue for criminals to commit a crime. So something like that, our portal will be able to pull it up and then throw it out to you that, hey, this is a website that has come up that looks like you. Check it out. And you can go further and then check it out to see if you were also is something that is impersonating you. So just randomly do a Google search about yourself. Okay, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Sir Eric. I see 3 other hands up. 2 are named Eric Mensah, so it's a bit dicey, but one of you should kindly unmute him or herself and then ask the question. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this presentation. We are enlightened, but I want to know, because we use our phones to do almost everything. Sometimes you put in your debit card details for easy access. So what do you advise? Maybe you want to do a transaction and the card details is already on your phone. At the click of a button, you get everything and then everything goes on smoothly. What do you advise? Can we just go ahead or what do we do? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, what you are talking about is more like you are making the website remember your card details. Now, the risk over there is that if you have it like that, and let's say somebody steals your phone and the person is very inquisitive to go through those applications and they can make some purchase, or they can even pick the card details from your phone because you have put it in there permanently. Yes, I know because of convenience and all that, you would have to you want to do that. But you have to marry security and convenience. Ideally, you don't really have to keep it in there. It's just like you go to a website and you click save my password, because when you click on save my password, anytime you go online, you don't need to input your password again. You just have to go into the website straight ahead. That is the same thing you are looking at in terms of the payment card details. So the advice is that don't make it like always input your card details, unless of course you are somebody who does a lot of purchases all the time. Then that one, there will have to be some kind of protocol put in place. And you can also look at the vendor. Some of the websites have the end-to-end encryptions, okay, to be able to protect customer data and all those things. So all these things come into play. But please and please make sure you don't save your card details for convenience sake. Okay, sometimes in Ghana here, let me tell you typically what some people do. Some people in Ghana here specifically use prepaid cards. Now, the prepaid cards, what happens is that they put money on the card before transactions go through. So even in that case, when somebody steals your card information, if you don't have money on your card, the person can't make any purchase with your card information unless you put money on your card. So that is one of the practices that people use to be able to protect their monies. Okay, so I think, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Eric. And then thank you for asking the question. Our Hassan Rashid wants to know what way can one check the authenticity of a website before engaging it with his data? Sir Eric. Okay, while we wait for Sir Eric, I see some other questions asking if the slides would be shared. Yes, please, we will share this presentation with everyone. If you did not register to join in, but you were sent the link directly, kindly type in your email address into the chat box. We would pick it and then send the link to this recording with you. Thank you very much. So, Sir Eric, how do we authenticate a website before engaging? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I was trying to pull up a website for you. I was trying to pull up a website for you to see how, well, I was trying to pull it up. Let me see. Okay, if not, I'll have to share my screen. So I'll be sharing the screen, my screen from here for you to see what I'm talking about. So in authenticating websites, we have something we call HTTPS. Okay, HTTPS. I'm not sure if you can see now. Let me, 1 minute. I just want to show you something. Apologies. I just want to unpin myself so that you can see me. But Matilda, can you see the website? Is it sharing?
Okay. Yes, please, I can see that.
Okay. So what is happening is that when you check the website, you will see HTTPS at the top left corner. So you see that, you see what I clicked, you see that connection is secure, right? So that is one of the basic things to look out for. Okay, of course, some criminals are able to, get steal this HTTPS, the security, but it's not everybody. So basically, when you want to input your details into a website, make sure that you are presented with a website that is HTTPS. Okay, a website that is HTTPS to protect yourself. Okay, thank you. I think time is also almost up, so maybe I'm told that we might get like 2 additional questions. Then that's all.
Okay, all right. So there's a user with a Dell. Could you please unmute yourself and then ask your question? Thank you. Okay, I think.
Okay, I want to find out. You said HTTPS, but why can't a fraudster also create an HTTPS?
So
that's
that,
my question.
yes, great. So that is why I did mention that, of course, even aside fraudsters legitimately creating HTTPS, they could even steal some SSL, we call it SSL certificates. Now, let me just add this to it. Aside the websites, okay, when you want to really authenticate the genuineness of some e-commerce platform, one of the ways is to make sure you you do background checks on the website. Okay, so if let's say you are want to deal with Alibaba, it's about trust, right? So Alibaba or AliExpress or Haptel or any of those websites, because they built that trust for a very long time, you intend to go to them. And of course, some of them have physical locations. So you could use some of the physical location as a way to assure yourself that it's a legitimate site. Okay. Then aside that, you can also check out this. So all this I'm talking about are multiple ways that you can use to satisfy yourself that it's a legit website. You can look at the reviews on the website. Yes, of course, sometimes some of the reviews are fake reviews. So use any means possible to be able to authenticate whether the e-commerce platform you are going to deal with is legitimate.
Okay.
All right, sir. Thank you. So the last question from the person using the Ericomenta with their hand raised. Can we have your question, please?
Hello. Hello.
Hello, sir. Kindly go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Mr. Mensah, for such a wonderful presentation. Please, I want to find out, how do you obtain the SSL certification? And then also, with regards to e-crime, we know that every crime has some punitive actions attached to it. So and also what we're dealing with is has to do with some faceless personalities. You can't see them, isn't it? Because it has to do with electronic means. So is there a way by which your bureau is actually working pretty hard to make sure that you I don't know, how would they be arrested in the first place? And because if we tend to administer punitive actions, then of course it tends to limit the issue of this high level of crime. And so these are the two things that we wanted to address from this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So first off, the SSL bit of your question. Speak to the person who do the website for you, the person who develop the website for you, and the website developer will be able to assist you. Okay, it's something that is integrated in the website. Either than that, you can also reach out to us for us to help you, because it's more technical. You have to go into the website and then do some kind of thing. So you speak to the website developer. When you tell them, they know. When you talk to them, they will be able. Even sometimes you might have it, and you personally are not aware. So they will tell you, "Oh, we have it. This, and then that's okay." Then, like I also mentioned, you can reach out to e-crime. The numbers have been shared, and then you would come in gladly to assist you assess your website also. Now, on your second bit, in terms of the apprehending the criminals, yes, For cybercrime is something that had become very prevalent within the ecosystem. And from the law perspective, you realize that even in 2020, the Cybersecurity Act was passed. It is all in the bid to be able to, get these criminals behind bars. Okay, so we also have the Electronic Transactions Act that is in there. We also have a whole lot of the regulation, the Data Protection Act, even there to be able to help in minimality in terms of data that is collected online and all those things. So there are a couple of laws that have been legislated to help out, and there are punitive measures to that. So, for example, Electronic Transactions Act, when you unauthorized access into systems, there is a punitive measure. There are fines, there are, how do we call it, prison terms that these criminals can face. Now, in terms of the technical ability of the law enforcement agencies, yes, they are doing a lot. I know there are a couple of initiatives that are ongoing. Even E-Crime Bureau, we are a private entity for your information. And what happens is that we also even consult for law enforcement agencies. So we have actually assisted the Ghana Police Service to set up a digital forensic lab. So that is one thing that we have done. And there is a lot of capacity building going on for the law enforcement agencies to be able to get to these criminals, apprehend these criminals. So basically, this is what is happening. But e-crime also helps in all this regard in terms of investigating and picking intelligence on some of these crimes that are being perpetrated across board. Thank you.
All right, Eric, thank you. I believe this is our last question. The question is, fintechs are now a source of data theft, and this is a worry. How do we report and counter this? A typical example is the 4CD loan. So, Eric.
Okay, so basically, this is just an allegation. So first off, if you have evidence, okay, if you have evidence, you can report to the police. If you realize that there's a lot of data that is also being taken by these fintechs, particularly unauthorized use of your personal data, it's a data protection issue. So you can launch a complaint to the Data Protection Commission, and they'll gladly help you, they'll gladly come in to assist. So you can, if it is more of personal data related things, please talk to the Data Protection Commission. Okay, it is your right. It's your right. Your right to complain. Okay, so it's your right. So talk to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Eric. I've been alerted. There's a question from Miss Encanta. Could you please unmute yourself and then ask your question?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the program. I actually wanted to know if because when the presentation was on, it was faster and we couldn't take all the notes, especially on how we can protect ourselves on e-level and e-crime. So we wanted to know if material can be sent to us through the email we use in logging in.
Yes, please. That would be done. That would be done. We would send the material to you. Please, is that or there's another question? You. Okay, thank you. So thank you all for your time. I would invite Frederick to